My name is Diego Reynolds, and at 72, I thought I understood what heartbreak meant. Then my wife of 48 years, Maria, passed away last summer. What followed shocked me to my core. At the reading of her will, my 3 children received checks totaling $12 million, while I got nothing but a sealed envelope containing a single letter and a small brass key. They laughed at me. "Poor old Dad," they sneered. If you want to know what happened next, drop a like and subscribe as I reveal the most painful betrayal of my life. Maria and I built our life from nothing. We met in 1975 at Chicago Community College, where I was studying business and she was pursuing accounting. I still remember the first time I saw her in the campus cafeteria, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, completely focused on her textbook while everyone around her was socializing. Something about her intensity drew me in. When I finally worked up the courage to talk to her, she looked up at me with those intelligent brown eyes and said, "You better not be wasting my time." She never did waste a minute of her life, and for 48 years, I was blessed to share that life with her. Our first apartment was a tiny one-bedroom walk up on North Clark Street. The heating barely worked, the neighbors were loud, and we could afford little more than ramen noodles and coffee. But we had dreams. Every night, we would sit at our wobbly kitchen table planning our future. Maria was brilliant with numbers, seeing patterns and opportunities that others missed. I had the people skills, the ability to negotiate and build relationships. Together, we were unstoppable. We started Reynolds Property Development in 1983 with a loan from Maria's uncle and the purchase of a run-down 4-unit building in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Maria handled the finances with meticulous care, while I managed renovations and tenant relations. Within 5 years, we owned 12 buildings. By 1990, we had expanded into commercial properties and begun developing our first shopping center. The business grew beyond anything we had imagined in those early days at our wobbly table. Maria developed innovative financing structures that minimized our risk while maximizing growth potential. Her reputation in Chicago financial circles became legendary. Bankers who once refused to take my calls were now eagerly offering us financing packages. By 2000, Reynolds Property Development was valued at over $30 million. By 2020, over $80 million. Our children came along during those years of growth. James, our eldest, was born in 1979. He was a serious child, always watching, calculating. Sophia arrived 2 years later, a beautiful girl who knew from an early age how to charm everyone around her. Thomas, our youngest, came as a surprise in 1986 when we thought our family was complete. He was creative, always dreaming up new ideas. Despite our growing wealth, Maria and I tried to raise them with the same values that had guided us: hard work, honesty, and compassion for others. We made them work summer jobs, volunteer in the community, and earn their privileges. But looking back, I can see now that we were fighting a losing battle against the inevitable effects of privilege. James went to Wharton Business School and joined the company in his mid-20s. He had his mother's analytical mind, but none of her integrity. More than once, Maria discovered him cutting corners on building codes or attempting to bribe officials. Each time, she would correct the situation and try to explain to him why such actions were not only unethical but ultimately bad for business. He would listen politely, then find new ways to bend rules the moment our backs were turned. Sophia graduated from Northwestern with a degree in communications, but never settled into a career. Instead, she married a series of increasingly wealthy men, each marriage ending when she grew bored or found a more promising prospect. Between marriages, she would travel the world on the family dime, posting glamorous photos from Monaco or Bali while complaining about the hotel service. Her spending was legendary. Once, she charged $60,000 in a single afternoon at designer stores on Michigan Avenue, then couldn't remember what she had purchased when the packages arrived. Thomas, our baby, had his mother's intelligence and my charm, but lacked direction. He bounced from venture to venture with enthusiasm that would burn bright then quickly fade. There was the organic juice bar chain that failed after 8 months, the social media app for pet owners that never launched, the cryptocurrency investment that vanished overnight. After each failure, He would show up at our door with tears and promises to do better next time. And each time, Maria would sigh, write a check to cover his debts, and encourage him to learn from his mistakes. Maria and I discussed our concerns about the children often. They need to face consequences, I would argue. How else will they learn? Maria would shake her head. They will learn in their own time, in their own way, she would say. We need to trust the values we've taught them. I wonder now if she truly believed that, or if she was already formulating a different plan. In January of 2023, Maria was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was poor from the beginning, but my Maria fought with the same determination she brought to everything in life. Between chemotherapy sessions, she continued to work, reviewing financial reports from her hospital bed. "The business doesn't stop because I'm sick," she would say when I urged her to rest. During her final months, I noticed her having private meetings with our longtime lawyer, Franklin Burns. When I asked about these conversations, she would smile gently and say, "I'm just putting things in order, my love. Nothing for you to worry about." I trusted her completely, as I had throughout our marriage. It never occurred to me to question what putting things in order might mean. Our last anniversary together was in April, 48 years. I arranged for a small dinner at home since Maria was too weak for a restaurant. Our children were invited, of course, but James called with a last-minute business emergency. Sophia had a spa weekend planned with friends, and Thomas showed up an hour late, stayed 20 minutes, then left for a concert. Maria and I ended up alone with an overpriced catering spread meant for 6. She didn't complain about the children's absence. Instead, she reached for my hand across the table and said, "It's always been you and me against the world anyway, hasn't it, Diego?" I should have realized then that she was trying to tell me something important. Maria passed away on a Tuesday morning in July. The summer sunlight was streaming through our bedroom windows as she took her final breath, my hand clutching hers. "I love you, Diego," she whispered. "Remember, everything I've done has been for love." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in a world suddenly emptied of its center. The hours and days that followed passed in a blur of grief so overwhelming I could barely function. I would find myself standing in rooms not remembering why I had entered. I would reach for the phone to tell Maria something, only to remember she was gone. Each realization was like losing her anew, a fresh wound tearing open just as the previous one began to close. What surprised me most during this time was the behavior of our children. I had expected them to rally around me, to share in my grief and help with the 1,000 details that follow a death. Instead, they seemed oddly detached, more focused on practical matters than emotional support. James took charge of the funeral arrangements, but in ways that bewildered me. When I mentioned that Maria had always loved lilies, he overruled me and ordered elaborate rose displays, saying they would photograph better for the obituary. When I suggested the service be held at the small church where we had been married, he insisted on the grand cathedral downtown where many business associates would feel more comfortable attending. Sophia arrived from Los Angeles 2 days after her mother died. Her first question was not about my well-being or the funeral plans, but about Maria's jewelry collection. "Mom always said I could have her sapphire earrings," she claimed, though I had no memory of such a promise. Within hours of arriving, she was in our bedroom going through Maria's possessions, setting aside items she wanted before her mother was even buried. Thomas called daily but rarely visited, each conversation quickly turning to questions about when the will would be read. "Just for planning purposes, Dad," he would say awkwardly when I grew quiet at these inquiries. "You know how Mom was always telling me to be more organized about my finances." The funeral service itself was a surreal experience. James had turned it into a networking event, positioning himself near the entrance to greet Chicago's business elite as they arrived. Sophia spent more time adjusting her black designer dress for photos than comforting me. Thomas disappeared halfway through the reception, later explaining he'd had an important call with a potential investor. What struck me most painfully was how Maria's longtime business associates showed more genuine grief than our own children. Her assistant of 20 years sobbed throughout the service. The janitor from our first office building came in his best suit, bringing hand-picked wildflowers that he placed gently on her casket, with tears streaming down his weathered face. "She always treated me like a person, Mr. Reynolds," he told me. Not like the invisible man. That evening, we had dinner at our home, the children insisting it would be good for me not to be alone. The conversation quickly turned to the will, with James speculating about the company's future. Mom always said I was born to lead Reynolds' development, he said, swirling his third glass of Maria's favorite red wine. I've already got plans to take us into the luxury condo market in Miami. What about Dad? Thomas asked, glancing at me nervously. James shrugged. Dad's 72. He deserves to retire, play golf, whatever he wants. The stress of running the business isn't good for someone his age. I sat silently, too grief-stricken to argue, though Maria and I had never discussed my retirement. In fact, she had always said we would work until we couldn't anymore, then fade away together. Later that night, I overheard James on his phone in the garden. Once the money comes through, he was saying, we can move on the Henderson property immediately. Mom's death might be the best thing that could have happened for the company. Honestly, no more old-school thinking holding us back. The family lawyer, Franklin Burns, called the next morning. The children had been pressuring him to schedule the will reading as soon as possible. They're quite insistent, Diego, he said apologetically. But we can wait if you need more time. Let's get it over with, I replied, a growing unease settling in my stomach. How about Friday? Friday works, Franklin said. There was a pause, then he added, Diego, you know Maria loved you very much. Yes, I said, puzzled by his tone. We had a wonderful life together. Yes, you did, he agreed, then quickly ended the call. That night was my first completely alone in the house I had shared with Maria for 30 years. I wandered from room to room, touching her books, smelling her perfume on her clothes, looking at photographs of our life together. In her jewelry box, tucked beneath her modest wedding ring that she only removed for baking, I found a handwritten note on her personal stationery. Trust me, Diego. I clutched that note all night as I finally slept, finding a small comfort in her familiar handwriting. Friday arrived with a heavy summer rain that matched my mood perfectly. I arrived at Franklin Burns's downtown office to find my 3 children already seated in the conference room, huddled together like conspirators. They fell silent when I entered, James quickly pocketing his phone while Sophia flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dad, how are you holding up? Thomas asked, the only one who bothered to stand and offer a brief, awkward hug. I'm managing, I replied, taking a seat across from them rather than beside them. The distance felt symbolic somehow. Franklin entered precisely at 10 o'clock, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing the serious expression of a man who knew he was about to change lives. He was a tall, thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who had been with us since our early days, handling everything from our first commercial lease to the complex international deals of recent years. Good morning, he began formally. We are here to read the last will and testament of Maria Isabella Reynolds. Before I begin, I want to express my deepest sympathies to all of you. Maria was an extraordinary woman, and her loss is felt deeply by all who knew her. James nodded impatiently. Thank you, Franklin. We're all grieving, but we also need to address the practical matters. Of course, Franklin replied, opening his portfolio. I'll proceed with the reading. He began with the standard legal language, confirming that Maria had been of sound mind and that this document represented her final wishes. I noticed he occasionally glanced at me with an unreadable expression as he read. To my son, James Michael Reynolds, Franklin read, I bequeath the sum of $4 million, to be transferred immediately upon the reading of this will. James's face broke into a wide grin as he reached over to squeeze Sophia's hand. To my daughter, Sophia Elizabeth Reynolds, Franklin continued, I bequeath the sum of $4 million, plus my personal collection of jewelry, with the exception of items specifically noted elsewhere in this document. Sophia gasped with pleasure. The sapphires, she whispered triumphantly. To my son, Thomas Allen Reynolds, Franklin read, his voice steady and professional. I bequeath the sum of $4 million, plus the vacation property in Key West, Florida, including all furnishings and the boat docked there. Thomas let out a low whistle. Sweet, he murmured, already pulling out his phone, presumably to share the news. Franklin paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. As to the remainder of my estate, including my shares in Reynolds Property Development, my personal accounts, and all other properties and possessions not specifically mentioned above. The room went completely silent. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as the children leaned forward expectantly. To my beloved husband, Diego Reynolds, I leave a personal letter, which is enclosed with this will. The silence shattered as James let out a bark of laughter. That's it? A letter? Franklin ignored him, continuing formally. This concludes the specific bequests of the will of Maria Isabella Reynolds. He reached into his portfolio and withdrew a sealed envelope. Diego, this is for you. I stared at the envelope in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Maria and I had built everything together. We had been partners in every sense of the word. How could she have left me with nothing but a letter, while giving our children $12 million to squander? Around me, the children erupted in celebration. James and Sophia hugged each other while Thomas pumped his fist in the air. Their joy in the face of my devastation felt like a physical blow. "Well, Dad," James said, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "I guess Mom finally figured out who really built the business." Sophia was already on her phone, scrolling through what appeared to be a real estate website. "I've had my eye on redecorating the lake house," she said to no one in particular. "Once it's sold, I think I'll gut the entire main floor." Mom's taste was always so dated. Thomas wouldn't meet my eyes, his attention fixed on his phone as his thumbs flew across the screen, presumably sharing the news with friends. Franklin handed me the envelope with an apologetic look. Diego, whatever he was about to say was drowned out by James loudly discussing plans for a celebration dinner at Gibson's Steakhouse. None of them invited me. I sat there, the envelope clutched in my trembling hands, feeling as though the world had tilted on its axis. After 48 years of marriage, after building a business and a family together, was this all Maria thought I deserved? A letter? More painful than Maria's apparent betrayal was the immediate abandonment by my children. Within minutes of learning they were millionaires, they had forgotten I existed. Their mother was barely cold in her grave, and they were planning how to spend her money without a thought for the grief that was consuming me. I left the office alone, the rain soaking through my suit as I walked blindly to my car. The envelope clutched against my chest like the last life preserver on a sinking ship. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember navigating the Chicago traffic or pulling into our circular driveway. I only remember sitting in my parked car, rain drumming on the roof, staring at our home through tears that wouldn't stop. Maria and I had designed this house together when the business first became successful. 6,000 square feet of dreams realized, with a library for my books, a professional kitchen for her love of cooking, and a garden where we would spend summer evenings talking about our day. Now it loomed before me like a mausoleum, empty of the woman who had made it a home and soon to be stripped from me if the children had their way. I couldn't bring myself to open the envelope. Whatever explanation Maria had written couldn't possibly justify what had just happened. Instead, I placed it on her pillow and took a sleeping pill, desperate to escape consciousness for a few hours. The next morning, my phone began ringing at 7. It was Harold Jensen, our closest friend and the godfather to Thomas. "Diego, is it true?" he asked without preamble. Maria left everything to the kids. Word had spread quickly. Throughout the day, more calls came in from friends and business associates, each expressing shock at Maria's will. With each conversation, my humiliation deepened. Everyone knew that I had been left with nothing, that my wife of nearly 5 decades had deemed me unworthy of the fortune we had built together. By Monday, more disturbing developments emerged. A realtor called asking when she could come by to take photos of the house. "Your daughter Sophia said you're eager to sell," the woman explained when I questioned her. I checked my email to find dozens of messages from the company, all marked as copies from communications that had excluded me. James had sent an announcement to all employees stating that he was assuming the role of CEO effective immediately. As my mother always intended, he had written, "I will now lead Reynolds Development into a bold new era." Sophia's Instagram feed, which one of Harold's daughters showed me, was filled with posts about shopping sprees at Neiman Marcus and a brand new Mercedes she had ordered. New beginnings. She captioned a photo of herself holding a glass of champagne. Mom would have wanted me to live my best life. Thomas was the only one who visited, arriving unannounced one afternoon about a week after the will reading. But his purpose wasn't to check on my well-being. He had come to collect childhood memorabilia and family photos for his Florida home. "I'll need the key to the storage unit too, Dad," he said as he boxed up albums from the library shelves. "There's some furniture there I want to move to Key West." "Those are family heirlooms, Thomas," I protested. "Your great-grandmother's dining table, your grandfather's desk." He shrugged. "And now they're mine, I guess." That's what Mom wanted. I checked my phone that evening to discover I had been removed from the family group chat. Decades of birthday dinners, Christmas mornings, family vacations, all erased in the pursuit of wealth. The children I had raised, whom I had loved unconditionally through all their mistakes, had discarded me the moment I was no longer useful to them. Worse still, I began to worry about my financial situation. When I tried to access our joint accounts, I discovered my permissions had been changed. James had moved quickly to seize control of the company finances. The personal accounts Maria and I shared had been emptied, the funds transferred elsewhere. My 73rd birthday passed without a single call from any of my children. Harold and his wife took me to dinner, their kindness only highlighting the absence of my family. "They'll come around," Harold assured me, though his eyes said something different. "Once the novelty of the money wears off." But I knew better. The money wouldn't change them. It had merely revealed who they truly were, and who Maria truly was, a thought that cut deeper than any other. I began hearing from neighbors about seeing moving trucks at the storage facility, where we kept family heirlooms and furniture from my parents' home. Sophia had apparently decided she wanted the antique mirrors and china cabinets we had been saving for future generations. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. I stopped answering the phone or checking email. The business I had spent my life building continued without me. My children spent their inheritance without me, and the world turned without me. I felt like a ghost in my own life, forgotten and abandoned. For nearly a month, the envelope from Maria remained untouched on her pillow. Each night I would look at it, my anger and hurt too raw to face whatever justification she had written. But as August turned to September and the first leaves began to fall, I found myself running out of distractions. One evening, after a particularly difficult day when I had driven past our first office building and seen the Reynolds development sign being replaced with a new logo designed by James, I returned home and finally picked up the envelope. Whatever was inside couldn't hurt me more than I had already been hurt. The paper was thick and cream-colored, Maria's favorite stationery. I opened it carefully, as if it might contain something fragile. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper and a small brass key taped to the corner. "My dearest Diego," the letter began in Maria's elegant handwriting. "If you are reading this, I am gone, and you are hurt and confused by my decisions. I can only imagine your pain and sense of betrayal. Please believe that everything I have done out of love for you and for the family we created together." The key attached to this letter opens our greatest treasure. To find it, you must return to where our journey began and follow the path of our love. Trust in me one last time, Diego, as you have trusted me through all our years together. I have always seen more clearly than most, especially when it comes to our children. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give those we love is not what they want, but what they need to become who they should be. I love you more than words can express. You were the best decision I ever made. Always yours, Maria. I stared at the small brass key. It didn't look like a house key or a car key or any key I recognized. Below Maria's signature was a postscript. First, go home. Home? I was home. Unless, my heart began to beat faster as I realized what she might mean. Our first home, where our journey began. For the first time since Maria's death, I felt something other than grief and betrayal. I felt a spark of curiosity, a tiny flame of hope. Whatever game Maria was playing from beyond the grave, I would follow her clues. I had nothing left to lose. The next morning, I showered and shaved for the first time in weeks, studying my reflection in the mirror. Grief had carved new lines into my face, and my eyes looked hollow, But there was something else there now. Purpose. I read Maria's letter again, focusing on her instructions. Return to where our journey began and follow the path of our love. Our journey had begun in that tiny apartment on North Clark Street, where we had dreamed our dreams and planned our future. The building had been renovated years ago into upscale condos. Maria and I had attended the grand opening, pleased to see a place that held such memories for us given new life. I had even donated money for a small commemorative plaque in the lobby, honoring the history of the building. I drove downtown, finding parking 2 blocks away, and walked to our old building. The doorman didn't recognize me, but when I explained I was just there to see the lobby, he shrugged and let me in. The commemorative plaque hung near the mailboxes, a simple bronze rectangle that read, "This building restored in 2015, with a generous contribution from Diego and Maria Reynolds, who began their journey together here in 1975. I stared at it, looking for any hidden message or clue. Running my fingers over the raised lettering, I felt something unusual. The date 1975 had a slightly different texture. Pressing it gently, I was shocked when the entire plaque shifted, revealing a small compartment behind it. Inside was a folded note in Maria's handwriting. "You found the first clue, my love. Now go to where we truly began, where Reynolds became more than just our name. Our first office, the place where Reynolds Property Development was born. A converted storage room above a deli on Western Avenue. The building was still there, though the deli had been replaced by a coffee shop. We had maintained ownership of it all these years, partly for sentimental reasons. The current tenant of our old office space was a graphic designer who seemed bemused by my request to look around. Mrs. Reynolds said someone might come by one day, she explained, surprising me. She visited about 6 months ago, very interested in the original brick wall we exposed during renovations. The brick wall had been covered by cheap paneling when we rented the space in 1983. I examined it carefully, running my hands over the rough surface until I found what I was looking for, a loose brick with our initials scratched into the mortar beside it. When I wiggled it free, I found a small metal box containing another note and a safety deposit box key. "Well done, Diego. You always said we built this company brick by brick. Now go to where we secured our foundation, Chicago First Bank. We had opened our first business account there, and over the years had maintained our relationship even as we outgrew their local services. The safety deposit box key had the bank's logo and a number stamped on it, 53. The bank manager remembered me, thankfully, and helped me access the box without additional identification. Inside was a collection of photographs I had never seen before. Maria throughout our marriage, but always captured when she didn't know she was being photographed. Maria laughing at a company picnic. Maria asleep at her desk surrounded by spreadsheets. Maria in the garden, face tilted to the Sunday. And a note. "These are how I looked when I was happiest, Diego. Always with you, always building our dreams together. Now go to where we celebrate our biggest risk and greatest reward." That could only mean one place. The Jackson Tower, our first major commercial development. We had risked everything on that project in 1993, leveraging every asset we had. Its success had catapulted Reynolds Development into a new league of developers. In the marble lobby of the 30-story tower was a display case with memorabilia from the grand opening. Maria had insisted on preserving these items. The original architectural rendering, the golden shovel from the groundbreaking, the ribbon we had cut together at the opening ceremony. Behind the display case was a wall safe I had forgotten about, installed during construction to hold important documents on site. Did I still remember the combination? I tried the date of the building's opening, 5/15/93. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single key to our lake house in Wisconsin, along with another note. "Almost there, my love. Go to where we were most truly ourselves." The lake house had been our sanctuary for 30 years. A simple A-frame cabin on 3 acres of pine forest overlooking the water. It was where we retreated when the pressures of business and family became too intense. We had built it ourselves over 2 summers, working weekends with the help of a local carpenter who taught us as we went. It was a 2-hour drive from Chicago. As I headed north, my phone rang. It was James. "Dad, where are you?" he demanded without greeting. "I stopped by the house and you weren't there." "I'm taking a drive," I replied, surprised by his call after weeks of silence. "A drive where?" "I need you to sign some papers transferring your office at headquarters. We're converting it to a conference room." "I haven't agreed to that, James." "Look, Dad, you need to be realistic here. You're not part of the company anymore. Mom made that clear in her will." "Did she?" I asked, a new confidence in my voice. "I'm not so sure about that anymore." "What does that mean?" His voice had an edge of panic that gave me a grim satisfaction. "It means I'm busy right now. Your conference room will have to wait." I hung up, something I had never done to one of my children before. It felt surprisingly good. The lake house looked exactly as it always had, a warm wooden structure nestled among tall pines. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, memories washing over me. Maria and I playing cards by the fire, teaching the children to fish off the dock when they were small, making love in the loft bedroom with the windows open to the summer breeze. But where was the next clue? I searched each room, finding nothing until I reached the small study where Maria would often read while I fished. On the bookshelf was our wedding photo, a black and white image of us laughing as we left the church. I picked it up, remembering the secret compartment we had built into the wall behind it when we first constructed the cabin. Our little hidey hole, Maria had called it. The panel slid open at my touch, revealing the wall safe we had installed decades ago. A safe no one else knew about, not even our children. As I was studying the safe, trying to determine if the small brass key would fit its lock, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. Through the window, I saw James's Range Rover pull up, Thomas in the passenger seat. How had they found me here? Had they been tracking my phone? They burst through the front door without knocking, both red-faced and agitated. "Dad, what are you doing?" James demanded, looking around suspiciously. "Why did you come up here alone?" "This is still my property, James," I reminded him. "I don't need permission to use it." Thomas was staring at the open panel in the wall, the safe now visible. "What's that? What are you hiding?" "I'm not hiding anything," I said calmly. "Your mother left me a series of clues that led me here." "Clues?" James looked incredulous. "What is this? Some kind of treasure hunt?" "In a way," I admitted, "though I don't yet know what I've been hunting for." Thomas stepped forward, his expression eager. "Is there money in that safe? Did Mom leave you cash?" Before I could answer, James's phone rang. He answered it, listened, then swore. "Sophia's on her way. She says we need to stop Dad from whatever he's doing. She thinks he might be destroying company documents." I laughed, surprising all of us. "Is that what you think I'm doing? Destroying evidence of some kind?" "Why else would you be sneaking around to all these properties?" James asked, eyes narrowed. "The building on Clark Street, the Western Avenue office, Jackson Tower. People have been calling me all day reporting your visits." "I'm following your mother's instructions," I said simply. "Mom's been dead for 2 months, Thomas pointed out. "How is she giving you instructions?" I held up the small brass key. "She left me a path to follow. This key is the final step." James stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Give me that key, Dad." "No," I said firmly. "Your mother left it to me, not you. Everything Mom had belongs to us now," James insisted. "The will was very clear. You got a letter, nothing else." "The letter contained this key," I replied. "And whatever is in this safe, your mother intended for me to find." Thomas moved to stand beside his brother, their united front bringing back painful memories of the will reading. "Dad, be reasonable. We can open the safe together, see what's inside, and make a fair decision about it." "Fair?" I repeated, anger rising in me. "Like how you've been fair about removing me from the company I built? Or fair like selling family heirlooms without consulting me? Or perhaps fair like emptying joint bank accounts that had my name on them? They had the grace to look uncomfortable, at least." "That's different," James argued. "The will gave us control of the business and Mom's assets." "Did it?" I asked. "Let's see what's in this safe before we make any more assumptions about what your mother intended." Sophia arrived 20 minutes later in a cloud of expensive perfume and entitlement, having apparently broken several speed limits to reach the lake house so quickly. "Dad, "What are you doing?" she demanded, eyeing the open wall panel. "James says you're being difficult about company matters. I'm following your mother's final instructions," I explained again. "She left me a trail of clues that led to this safe." "And we're supposed to believe that?" Sophia scoffed. "Mom left everything to us. It's in the will. Then you have nothing to worry about," I countered. "If there's nothing important in this safe, nothing that changes the situation, then why are all three of you so concerned about it?" They exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that excluded me, as had become their habit. "We just want to protect Mom's wishes," Thomas said, though his eyes didn't meet mine. "And Mom's wishes were for me to open this safe," I replied, holding up the brass key. "Alone. That's not happening," James stated flatly. "Whatever's in there affects all of us." "Then I suggest you leave," I said with a calmness I didn't entirely feel, "because I'm not opening this safe with an audience." "This is ridiculous," Sophia exclaimed. "We own this cabin now. Technically, you're trespassing." Actually, I corrected her. "The cabin is solely in my name. It always has been. Your mother insisted on that arrangement years ago. The only property she specifically left to any of you in the will was the Key West house to Thomas. The rest of the real estate holdings are part of the company assets, which we haven't established ownership of yet." This was a detail they hadn't known, and it clearly rattled them. James recovered first. "Dad, let's be reasonable here. We're all grieving Mom. We're all trying to honor her memory and her wishes. But this cloak and dagger routine isn't helping anyone." "Tell me something," I said, looking at each of them in turn. "Why do you think you deserve more than the $12 million you've already received? What have any of you done to earn it?" The question hung in the air, uncomfortable and accusatory. "We're her children," Sophia finally answered. "She wanted us to have security." "Security?" I laughed without humor. $4 million each isn't enough security? You need more? The company is our legacy," James argued. "Mom built it for us to carry forward. Your mother and I built it together," I corrected him. "And neither of us built it for you to inherit without earning it. We built it through hard work, integrity, and sacrifice. Values I don't see any of you demonstrating right now." "That's unfair," Thomas protested weakly. "Is it?" I challenged him. "Thomas, you've squandered every opportunity we've given you. James, you've repeatedly tried to undermine our business ethics for quick profits. And Sophia, when have you ever contributed anything to the company except withdrawal requests?" Their faces registered shock at my bluntness. I had never spoken to them this way before, had always been the softer parent, the one who mediated when Maria took a hard line. "You can stand here and argue with me," I continued, "or you can leave and let me follow your mother's instructions. Those are your options." After a tense standoff, James finally nodded curtly. "Fine. Open your precious safe, but we're staying right here to see what's inside." "Then you'll be waiting a long time," I replied, pocketing the key and walking toward the door. "I'm going for a walk. When I come back, I expect you to be gone." "You can't do this," Sophia called after me. "We have rights." "So do I said without turning around, "and I intend to exercise them." I spent an hour walking the property, giving them time to debate and hopefully decide to leave. The autumn air was crisp, the lake shimmering in the afternoon sunlight. I could almost feel Maria walking beside me as she had so many times over the years. "Trust me, Diego," I could hear her saying. When I returned to the cabin, their cars were gone. Whether they were hiding nearby, watching the property, I didn't know and didn't care. I went straight to the safe and inserted the small brass key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. Inside the safe was a USB drive, a thick envelope of legal documents, and a letter marked "Read First" in Maria's handwriting. I took them all to the kitchen table and began with the letter. "My dearest Diego, if you're reading this, you've followed my breadcrumb trail and found our secret safe. I'm sorry for the elaborate game, but I needed to be certain these items would reach only you, and that our children wouldn't interfere before you discovered the whole truth. The $12 million I left to the children is not, as they believe, their inheritance. It is an advance against their inheritance and comes with conditions they are not yet aware of. Franklin has additional documents that will be revealed to them only after you have had time to review everything I've left for you. The USB drive contains financial records I've been compiling for the past 5 years. I discovered disturbing patterns that I needed to verify before taking action. What I found was heartbreaking. James has been systematically embezzling from the company through a series of shell contractors. Sophia has been selling proprietary information about our developments to competitors. And Thomas, while not actively stealing, has been using company resources for his failed ventures without authorization or repayment. Even worse, I discovered that James was planning a hostile takeover that would have forced you out of the company. He had been meeting with board members and investors behind our backs, positioning himself as the future of Reynolds Development, while painting you as out of touch and ready for retirement. I couldn't confront them directly without proof, and by the time I had gathered enough evidence, my cancer diagnosis made me change my approach entirely. Instead of exposure and potential legal consequences that would destroy the family, I devised a test. The legal documents in the envelope clarify that you remain the majority shareholder of Reynolds Development, which is currently valued at $106 million. Your 70% ownership was never in question. The remaining 30%, which was in my name, is what's at stake for the children. Watch the video on the USB drive for my complete explanation. Know that I love you, and everything I've done has been to protect you and the legacy we built together. Forever yours, Maria. My hands trembled as I connected the USB drive to my laptop. Maria's face appeared on the screen, clearly recorded in her final weeks. She was thin and pale, but her eyes were as sharp and determined as ever. "Diego, my love," she began. "By now you've read my letter and know what our children have done. I've spent my final months creating a path forward that gives them a chance at redemption while protecting you and our company." She explained in detail how she had structured her will to appear as though the children received everything while actually giving them only a conditional advance. The $12 million would be counted against their potential inheritance of her 30% of the company, but only if they met strict ethical and performance requirements over the next 5 years. If they choose greed and continued deception, Maria continued, they forfeit any claim to the remaining value of my shares, which will revert to you completely. If they choose redemption, hard work, and ethical behavior, they can earn their way back to their birthright. She had documented everything meticulously, in the thorough way that had made her such a formidable businesswoman. There were spreadsheets tracking the embezzlement, recorded conversations about the planned hostile takeover, emails showing Sophia's betrayal. "I didn't want to believe it either," Maria said softly, as if reading my shocked expression through the screen. "But we didn't raise them to be entitled or dishonest. Somewhere along the way, we failed them by making everything too easy, by cleaning up their messes, by shielding them from consequences. This is my attempt to correct that mistake before it's too late for them to become the people I know they can be." The video ended with Maria looking directly into the camera, her eyes filled with tears and determination. "Trust yourself, Diego. You always saw the best in everyone, including our children. Now, you need to be strong enough to show them the path back to their best selves. I love you. I have always loved you, and I'm counting on you one last time." The screen went dark, but Maria's presence seemed to fill the cabin. I sat in silence for a long time, absorbing everything I had learned. The betrayal by my children cut deep, but Maria's foresight and protection wrapped around me like a shield. She had seen so clearly what I had missed, had protected me even as she was dying, and had created a path forward that offered both justice and redemption. It was brilliant and compassionate and entirely Maria. I gathered the documents carefully and packed them in my briefcase. It was time to return to Chicago and reclaim what was mine. It was time to honor Maria's final wish and offer our children both truth and opportunity. As I locked the cabin, I felt Maria's presence one last time, a gentle hand on my shoulder and her voice in my ear. "Remember, everything I've done has been for love." The meeting was set for Monday morning at Reynolds Development headquarters, the gleaming tower on Michigan Avenue that represented the pinnacle of what Maria and I had built together. Before confronting the children, I met with Franklin Burns to confirm the legality of Maria's arrangements. "Everything is in perfect order," Franklin assured me. Maria was meticulous, as always. The children's inheritance is conditional upon their behavior moving forward, and you retain full control of the company. Why didn't you tell me this at the will reading? I asked. Franklin looked apologetic. Maria's instructions were very specific. You needed to find the safe and its contents on your own, without influence from me or anyone else. She said you needed to come to certain realizations independently. She had been right, of course. If Franklin had simply told me everything at the will reading, I might not have believed him. I needed to see the evidence for myself, to follow Maria's trail and discover the truth step by step. When I arrived at the office, James was already seated at the head of the boardroom table, with Sophia and Thomas flanking him. Their expressions ranged from irritated to concerned as I entered with Franklin. "Dad, we didn't expect you to bring a lawyer," James said, his tone suggesting I was being difficult. "Franklin isn't here as my lawyer today," I replied calmly. "He's here as the executor of your mother's complete will." Thomas frowned. "Complete will? We already had the will reading." "You heard a portion of your mother's will," Franklin corrected. "The remainder was contingent upon your father locating certain documents, which he has now done." I placed my briefcase on the table and removed the files Maria had prepared. "Before we continue, I want to make something clear. What happens next is entirely up to the three of you. Your mother created a path forward that offers both accountability and opportunity." "What does that mean?" Sophia asked, her perfectly manicured nails tapping nervously on the table. "It means," I said, meeting her eyes, "that your mother knew about the embezzlement, the information leaks, and the planned hostile takeover." The color drained from James's face. "What are you talking about?" In answer, I opened my laptop and played a portion of Maria's video, the section where she outlined the evidence she had gathered. As they watched their mother's frail but determined figure detail their betrayals, all three children seemed to shrink in their chairs. When the video ended, I laid out the legal documents showing that I remained the majority owner of Reynolds Development, and that their $12 million was merely an advance against their potential inheritance of Maria's 30%. "So we don't actually own any of the company?" Thomas asked, stunned. "Not currently," Franklin confirmed. "Your mother's 30% ownership stake is held in trust, with very specific conditions for its distribution." "This is ridiculous," James protested, though his voice lacked conviction. "Those alleged betrayals are just business decisions you didn't agree with. I was modernizing our approach. Hiding company funds in shell corporations you personally own isn't modernizing, James," I replied. "It's embezzlement. And Sophia, selling our confidential development plans to Westbrook Properties isn't business strategy, it's corporate espionage." Sophia flushed, tears welling in her eyes. "I needed the money," she whispered. "The divorce settlements never covered my expenses, and that justifies betraying your family?" I asked, not unkindly. "Thomas, using company resources for your ventures wasn't as deliberate as your siblings' actions, but it was still wrong. You never asked permission, never documented the loans, never repaid what you took." Thomas looked at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. "Here's what your mother proposed," I continued, pushing the documents toward them. "You have a choice. You can return the $12 million and face potential legal consequences for your actions, or you can accept her terms for earning your way back into the company and the family trust." "What terms?" James asked warily. 1 year of therapy, both individual and as a family. I read from Maria's document. Honest work in the company, starting in entry-level positions in departments where you can learn the business properly. Regular evaluations of your performance and ethics. No access to company finances for a minimum of 5 years. After that time, if you've demonstrated growth and trustworthiness, you can begin to earn shares of your mother's 30%. "Entry-level positions?" Sophia repeated incredulously. "After all these years, your mother believed you needed to understand the business from the ground up," Franklin explained, "to appreciate the work and the people that make it successful." "This is insane," James declared, standing abruptly. "I'm not going to be demoted in a company I helped build. I'll fight this in court." "You're welcome to try," Franklin said mildly, "but the evidence of financial impropriety is quite substantial. I wouldn't advise a legal battle you're unlikely to win. James grabbed his jacket. I don't have to listen to this. I have $4 million and plenty of connections. I can start my own development company. Without references from Reynolds Development? With a potential fraud investigation hanging over you? I asked. Is that really the path you want to take? He stormed out without answering, the door slamming behind him. Sophia broke down in tears, her carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. I've spent almost half of it already, she admitted between sobs. I bought a condo in New York, ordered a custom car, booked a 3-month cruise. Your mother anticipated that possibility, I told her. There are provisions for repayment plans if you choose to accept her terms. Why did she do this? Sophia asked, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Why didn't she just confront us when she found out? She wanted to give you a chance to become better people, I explained. She believed punishment alone wouldn't change you. You needed to choose a different path for yourselves. Thomas had been quiet throughout the exchange, staring at his hands. Finally, he looked up. I'm sorry, Dad, he said, his voice barely audible. I never meant to hurt you or Mom. I just kept digging myself deeper, and then it seemed easier to keep taking than to admit what I'd done. His sincere regret touched me. Your mother believed all 3 of you could change, I told him. She wouldn't have created this elaborate plan if she thought you were beyond redemption. I want to try, Thomas said simply. I'll do whatever it takes. The following year was one of profound transformation. James initially followed through on his threat to start a competing company, but without his family's reputation to trade on, and with whispers of his past behavior circulating in business circles, he struggled. 6 months later, he returned, humbled and ready to accept Maria's terms. Sophia's journey was more emotional. The therapy sessions revealed a lifetime of insecurity hidden beneath her confident exterior, a desperate need for validation that no amount of luxury could satisfy. Slowly, she began to find purpose in honest work and genuine connections, rather than status symbols. Thomas thrived once he had clear expectations and accountability. He started in property management, learning the business from the tenant perspective, and discovered he had a genuine talent for improving customer satisfaction. For my part, I found new purpose in mentoring not only my children but promising employees throughout the company. Maria had been preparing me for this role all along, I realized. Not retirement, but a different kind of leadership. On the anniversary of Maria's death, I took the children back to the lake house. We sat on the dock as the sun set, talking openly about the journey of the past year. Mom was pretty brilliant, wasn't she? Thomas reflected. She found a way to save us from ourselves. She saw us more clearly than we saw ourselves. I agreed. Both the worst and the best in each of you. I still don't understand why she didn't just leave everything to you, Sophia said. After what we'd done, we didn't deserve anything. That's exactly why she did it this way, I explained. If she had simply punished you, you might have become bitter and entitled victims in your own minds. Instead, she offered you a choice and a chance. The money was just a test to reveal your characters. A test we initially failed, James acknowledged ruefully, but one you're now passing, I assured him. Your mother's greatest gift wasn't the inheritance. It was the opportunity to become people worthy of inheriting what we built. As twilight deepened into night, I thought about the wisdom of Maria's plan. Money and success don't build character, they reveal it. My children had been given everything without earning it, and it had nearly destroyed them. Only by losing it all did they begin to understand its true value. The deeper lesson, one I was still learning myself, was about love's remarkable vision. Maria had seen our children's flaws with clear eyes, but she had also seen their potential for growth. She had loved them enough to risk their hatred by holding them accountable, offering them the harder path of earning their way rather than the easy path of undeserved wealth. In doing so, she had given them something far more valuable than $12 million. She had given them the chance to discover their own strength, integrity, and purpose. And she had given me the gift of truly knowing my children, not as the people I wished they were, but as the complex, flawed, and ultimately redeemable human beings they actually were. What treasures have your family experiences revealed about character? Have you ever discovered that someone you thought you knew completely still had the capacity to surprise you with their wisdom? Drop a comment below sharing your story. And if you found value in mine, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear this message of redemption and second chances. Thank you for listening to an old man's journey through loss, betrayal, and ultimately, healing. May you find the same clarity and peace in your own life's challenges.